Greetings, everyone. This is Payment Lawrence, the host of the Leaders Podcast. Today, I have yet another wonderful, inspiring, empowering guest, my new good friend, Mr. Phil Routley from beautiful British Columbia. He's originally from Peterborough, Ontario, not far from where I grew up in. So we connected through our common good friend and fellow pastor, um, leader,
Jay.
Jay, leader with another wonderful leader with a faith. How do you say it? Faith-based leader, just like him.
Yeah.
And this gentleman right here is an incredible human being. We connected over 2 weeks ago, and we had a call just yesterday. And I said, you know what? I want you on my podcast to share your story, a little bit about him. He's basically devoted his life to the Lord, to God. He's been involved in Christian leadership for 55 years and 35 years as a pastor and counting, and is on his way to reach his 200 years soon. So that's his goal. I'm going to be cheering for him. So yeah, and what he does, he empowers Christian leaders on their teams and their team, to hear the master say, "Well done, faithful servants," every day of their life. So amazing story, amazing gifts he's been blessed with, and I'm super excited about it. And I told him, we will do, I have a feeling that me and you, we will be doing more than just one episode. So I'm super excited to have him here. Phil, welcome to the show, my friend.
Great to be here. Thank you so much. I've got to ask you a question first, though. On my screen, it says your name is Lorenzo Payman.
Yes.
And I only know you as Payman.
That's fine. Payman
is that your first or your last name?
Payman is my first name. Lorenzo is my middle name. And so that's a good story. So when I for business, use my first name, Payman. When I travel, I use Lorenzo. And yeah, it's as I would say in Asia, same. Yeah, same with different.
Fair enough.
Awesome. Now tell us, how are you doing today? For you, it's in what? It's 7:26 p.m. for you, and on the West Coast. For me, it's 10:26 Saturday morning. So how was your day today?
It was really good. Had some good meetings, working with some of the leaders from our church to plant a new church in our community. So this was the first time we got together, gone around the community. It was fantastic. We were together for almost it was 4 hours. And then my wife and I went out for a drive this afternoon. Cultus Lake's about 10 minutes from where we live, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful, serene lake that we drove around and got down to the U.S. border, which is 10 minutes south of there. We're almost on the border where we are, but it was just nice and relaxing. Ezra, who I was with, we went out for an incredible Indian meal at noon. I had a Kashmiri that I absolutely love. I like Indian hot. Got it with prawns and some naan bread. And so I haven't had supper. I'm not going to have supper. This is most of what I'm having.
Cheers. Enjoy.
Water is it. Yeah.
That sounds like a king's feast. You had this for lunch, my friend.
We love it. It's a restaurant called Shandar Hut.
Shout out.
It's our favorite Indian restaurant here in the lower mainland of British Columbia.
Beautiful. Awesome. Now, we're going to talk about your impact, your business, everything you're doing later on. But first, for people who don't know you, who's Phil as a person, as a human being, as a man?
Oh, I was on a podcast, not a podcast. I was on a webinar the other day, and the person who was leading it encouraged us to start always with something that was a game changer in your life from when you were fairly young. And I got to thinking about that. And I remembered the time when I was 12. I love sports. I love playing most sports. I don't play many of them anymore. I want to get pickleball one of these days, but I was playing baseball. It was the only summer I ever played baseball. I played softball, but I never played actual baseball, like with the smaller ball. My dad was a champion baseball player when he was 14, 15. He was on a team that won the Ontario Championship. I still have his medal in my boxes of memorabilia. But this was the one opportunity I had to play baseball. We had a phenomenal team. We won every game during the season, got into the playoffs, and very excited about whatever's going to happen next. I always tended to come close but not win. But we had a team that was capable of winning it. But on that Saturday morning, as we arrived to play our game, there were only 8 of us. And of course, a baseball team means 9.
Okay.
Because of that, we were disqualified.
Oh no.
We couldn't play towards the championship. They allowed us to play, but the game didn't count. And the decision was we were done. We had lost no matter what because we couldn't field an entire team. A couple of weeks after that, I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and I noticed on the front porch of one of the guys that I go to school with who was on that team, who had not been there that day. And so I went up to him and said, "Hey, we missed you. You weren't at the game. How come you weren't there?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it." And my heart dropped. I was so disappointed. I mean, this was worse than the fact that we lost the game. We lost because of somebody's indifference, because somebody was quitting. And the whole idea of people quitting, of not rising to their best, of not being who they can be, I hate that. I just hate that. And I think that was the time that my heart really shifted into this whole idea of fulfilling what you are capable of being, what you are capable of doing, rising to that level that you can get to, and how much I hate the idea of people quitting early, just walking away from it. I mean, the fact is, that's 60 years ago.
Mm.
And it still sticks in my head and in my heart that when people have potential and they don't achieve it or even try to achieve it because, I don't know, I didn't feel like it. That's one of the saddest things that I've discovered out there. I also found that one of the other ways that people can really let one another down is by not being honest.
Mm.
But would have been 3 years after that. I was playing junior football on my high school team. Again, we had an undefeated season. We were expected to win the Central Ontario Championship. And as we were meeting in a classroom before getting dressed to go and play in this semifinal game, we found out that one of our players who had come from another high school had lied about his age.
Oh.
He could play if he was 15. He could not play for the junior team if he was 16. He would have to play on the senior team.
Mm.
And as a result, our undefeated season became 0-8.
Oh no.
Every game that we had won is gone because of this jerk who wanted to look after himself and play junior football where he could do really well because he was overage. Instead, the rest of us paid the price for it. And it just those kinds of things have made me into the person that I am. The priorities that I have, I know the things that disappoint me. I want to protect other people from those disappointments. Same year that we were disqualified in football was also the year that I met the woman who would become my future wife. We were at a camp. I was there as a music student. She was there on staff. The first time that we met, she handed me a cup of hot chocolate.
Oh, sweet.
We lived a couple of hours apart, but it was a church camp. So we were part of the same denomination. And we met in July 1967, which was Canada's centennial. And we kept in touch. As soon as I turned 16, I got my driver's license, started going back and forth at least once a month. And we got married 4 years later. I was only 19 when we got married. I do not recommend that to anybody today. It worked
Different
for
world.
us.
It's a different world completely.
It worked for us. We basically grew up together, and we've now been married 52 years. So
Wow.
we thank the Lord for all of
Amen.
that.
Amen.
We've had the privilege of raising 3 children. Our oldest boy got married a number of years ago, married an American, moved to the US. He and his family settled in the Atlanta area. They had 4 boys, beginning with twins,
Wow.
and then adopted 2 boys from
Oh,
Ethiopia.
so
So
beautiful.
crazy busy house. Um, our middle son met an American girl online, moved to the Seattle area. They're now in Portland, and they have 2 sons who are 15 and 13. And then we have a daughter that's here in Burnaby, just an hour away from us. Um, when they were 3, she adopted twin girls, and that is 16 years ago. They turned 19 yesterday.
Wow.
So these 2 twin girls, um, I'm not going to go into details. They are challenges, believe me.
Yeah.
Melody's a single mom, and then 5 years ago she adopted another little girl. All of them from the First Nations communities, and so she's got twin 19-year-olds and an 8-year-old.
Beautiful.
We see her pretty often. We see Chris in Portland less often, and we see Dave and his family. Well, we saw them last July because one of them got married, and so we were able to get to Atlanta for that. But that was the first time since COVID that we were able to get down there. Um, I absolutely love every one of them. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
And that's part of what makes me, as a dad and as a granddad, want to live the most faithful life that I possibly can. You mentioned what my leadership development business is all about. It's about empowering Christ followers and their teams to hear the master say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," every day of their lives.
Lovely.
But it comes from the Jesus parable of the servants, or some kind of the stewards, or even the talents. But it's got 3 guys who are entrusted, one of them with what today American would be about $5 million worth of assets. The next one is 2 million. The next one is 1 million. Master goes away, comes back. The first one has taken his 5 and doubled it, and it's now worth 10. So he gives 10 back to the master. The master says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." The one who had 2, he did the same thing. He doubled it. Now double the value. "Well done, good and faithful servant." The third one said, "Master, I was really afraid. I went and buried it. So here's your 1 million back."
Oh,
And Jesus, the master in the story, says, "Get away from me. I want nothing to do with you."
oh, wow.
One of the things we talk about as our church, we've been truly blessed. I'm an elder there. I'm not one of the pastors. Is the idea that we have the responsibility of doubling the master's money.
Mm,
He has blessed us, he has enriched us, but he's given all of that to us, just as he gives to each and every one of us what we're capable of in order to double it and offer back to him twice as much as he gave to us. So you put some of those things together, and they're a huge part of who I am, what my priorities are, why I choose to do the things that I choose to do. And I've always been determined to be a lifelong learner. So I don't know how many more years I've got. I figure I'm probably in the fourth quarter, but it's got to be learning to the end as much as I'm possibly capable of doing.
wow.
That's a pretty big nutshell.
What a story. What a story. I mean, this can be, and me and you, we can do an entire, not even a season, an entire podcast, because it's covering each chapter of your life, each
Mm,
using sets of gifts, wisdom, lessons you've accumulated, and now you're in the season of your life you've been in the season of your life to share those gifts for a long time. And wow, I'm super excited. Let's get going. Thank you for sharing that. That's what a story. And I love the heart and your families by adopting children. That's one of the greatest gift to humanity, service to humanity that anyone can do, especially if it's a kid from an underprivileged background. So that's, as we say in French, chapeau. Take off my hat to you and your family.
Well,
You know,
we've got 11
wow,
grandchildren. 5 of them are adopted.
wow,
And that simply says, apparently we did something right with our kids because they've got that kind of attitude that God has blessed them. They've got an obligation to bless others in turn.
absolutely. You know, we are just like the saying says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. Also, you're the average of
Yeah.
the environment you grew up in with. So I can see
Mm-hmm.
they grew up in a very loving, nurturing, caring environment with God played and still plays and will always play a central role, which is important for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what religion you're in, we all need to have structure, God, stability, and that's what religion can bring to people.
Mm-hmm.
And super happy to hear that. Wow.
Good.
Let's get started. I'm excited.
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
What makes you happy as a person?
Spending time with my kids.
What makes you smile?
Spending time with my wife.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
They're central to everything that I do.
Awesome. Now, let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your heart sing? What sets your soul on fire in a positive way?
Worship.
Mm,
It really does. The church that we attend is about 40-minute drive from where we are. And when we moved this far away, of course, we thought we really should be finding something that's closer for a lot of reasons. But that's about 8 years ago now that we moved that far away. And quite often on our way to church, my wife and I would have the discussion, isn't it time that we found something that was closer? And then we go in and it's a tremendous church. Basically, people worship at 1,000 people at a time. And on weekends, there are 4 services, and we've got some campuses outside of that. But it's an exciting place to be. And after the worship and hearing the word preached by some of the best scripture communicator preachers that there are, we get in the car and I would turn to my wife and I would say, I love my church. It's inspiring to be there. And it really does lift me up and empower me to keep going for another week.
wow, beautiful.
You
Sometimes
know that a lot of your questions for me, my answers are going to be faith-based, right?
I love that. I love that. I love
Um,
that because this is if that is your fire, your fuel, then by all means, that's beautiful. I love that.
yeah.
Awesome. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
The Boston Bruins beat the Canucks yesterday 4-0.
Again? Again?
Again.
You guys have history with that. I'm not gonna, you know, bring it
They
up.
had won like 13 in a row, and then they go into Boston. But anyway,
All right, next time you guys are gonna whoop their ass, okay?
there you go.
Awesome, awesome. Other than
No,
that,
I mean, yeah. I think when I get really disappointed, it's things that I talked about earlier. It's when people let you down,
mm,
people that you have been counting on, um, should have been there to play that game. I don't care if you didn't feel like it. You had an obligation. You
mm,
never should have lied. And that kind of thing really disappoints me when I see that. I mean, Pastors are people too. Church people are people too. They do let you down sometimes. When it's intentional,
Mm,
that bugs me. It
absolutely.
really bugs me. When I find out that um, that a politician is on the take, isn't who they say they are, and I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this out loud. I'm afraid that's most of them.
I was about to say,
Be,
have you encountered in your long and illustrious career in life so far a politician that actually was honest and kept the
a
word?
hand, a handful,
Oh wow.
a handful,
Mm,
and but they're the ones in those positions, and they are in those positions whether we like it or not because God put them there.
mm,
This was part of the approach we went into through COVID. And everybody gets locked down, and you've got provincial and federal and American. Everybody else is saying, "Oh, you've got to do this. You got to do this. You can't do that. You can't do that." And the approach that my church took, the approach that I took, was those leaders are there because God put them there. Now, there's some logical things to that, okay, so that means that when the slaves in Israel were in Egypt and Pharaoh was there and mistreating them, that Pharaoh was there because God had him there at that time. When we look at when Jesus walked the earth and we look at Herod, we look at the Romans, Caesar, who were oppressing the Jewish people. Well, that's on a whole other level than Bonnie Henry, our health minister or head of BC Health here in BC, saying you need ID to be able to go into a restaurant and sit down.
nonsense.
I don't like that. I absolutely
Craziness.
don't like that. But she's not in that position. She would not be in that position if God had not put her there at this time.
Do you think she was put
So
there as a way to trigger and awaken people?
I don't know.
Mm,
There's a lot of questions that when I get to heaven, I want to say to God, what was that all about?
yes.
Because there's a lot of things I just don't get. But I have to go based on the idea that in God's word says you need to honor your leaders. It's not easy all the time. I don't feel like honoring them.
Oh yeah.
And God basically says, so
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
no, I mean, we can argue all we want. We can discuss and we can disagree, and that's always going to happen. But trusting God ultimately is what it comes down to.
Indeed, and
And I
surrender.
know there have been times in my life where I can only say that I have actually heard God speak. And on at least two of those occasions, what I heard him say was, I've got this. Something would happen and I'd be upset and I couldn't sleep and I'd be worried. And then I would hear this voice say, I've got this.
Wow. When was the last time you
And
encountered?
there's nothing profound about that. I already know he's got this. So it isn't like this is a revelation of a new truth. It's simply being reminded of something that he's got this. What are
Absolutely.
you worrying about?
Amen.
No?
Amen. You know, so what I also do, one of my superpowers is that I don't get stressed by anything because I know I
Mm.
completely surrender to God to as long as it doesn't kill me, I'm fine.
Hmm.
Because I've been through so much crap in my life, I've overcome so much crap that honestly nothing even phases me anymore. I've been the
What
lowest of the
doesn't kill
lower.
me makes me stronger.
Exactly. Exactly. And life is a school. We're here to learn, to grow, become wiser, better, smarter, and then take those gifts and share them with others so we can all collectively rise. Ultimately, at least that's my humble understanding of why we are here for.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A huge part of it.
Absolutely.
Did I answer your question? I'm
Oh,
not sure.
beautiful, beautiful. One thing that you mentioned, I didn't want to ask it, but I have to ask it because it was burning me, and that is you mentioned that one of your pet peeves is when people let you down and don't keep their word. Now, let's ask the big question. What do you think can motivate someone to do that? If they know that people are depending on them, but then they drop the ball, either consciously and unconsciously. What do you think would, I know it's a very difficult question to ask, but from your experience, let's speculate. What do you think can push someone to do that?
I could probably give you 25 things.
I know.
Some of them though that are on the top of that is they just don't care about anybody else or anything. They only care about themselves, right? Me, myself, and I is the three most important people in my world.
Me, what can I get? What's in it for me? Those kind of people, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you got an opportunity to win a baseball championship and instead you decide to go riding your bike.
Come on, that's beyond
Okay.
stupid,
It,
seriously.
yeah. I mean, you lie so that you can play on a team that you're not supposed to be on. Well, yeah, I don't get it. The risks, well, I didn't think I'd ever get found out. Okay, that doesn't change anything.
But Phil, truth always prevails. Truth will always
Hmm.
find a way to come out, no matter what.
Eventually it does.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. I've heard different people through the years say if you if you want to be able to sleep at night, always tell the truth, or you're staying awake trying to keep track of your lies.
And stress and killing yourself stressed on the way. Yeah, no.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So, you put some of these things together. Part of it is just, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Mm.
Um, I am the most important person in the world. Um, yeah, I think a lot of it kind of comes down to those kinds of things. Your relationship with other people cannot be very important if you're willing to lie, cheat, and steal,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in my mind, there's nothing more important than in life than our relationships. For
Uh,
me as a Christian, the first one is my relationship with God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, my relationship with my family. I never want to let them down.
Absolutely.
I talking with somebody earlier today, nobody I've mentioned already, um, about a couple that have been married for a few years and then ended up getting a divorce. And from his perspective, he did absolutely nothing wrong. And all the blame has been thrown on her. And it's a challenge. I mean, marriage is hard. It just is. You've never talked about your marriage experience, but it is hard, but it's worth it. When
Anything that's worthwhile takes work and effort and time.
if it does, it does. When our oldest boy got married, he's married 25 years now. When he got married, we went and visited them. They were in the Phoenix area at that time and took a drive over to San Diego and up through LA and then back over to Phoenix. And along the way, I asked them, they're sitting in the back of the car, and I asked, what was it about our marriage that was the most important thing that you learned from us?
Wow.
And without skipping a beat, Dave said, failure is not an option.
Love that. How do
And
you
they've made 25.
how do you implement that? You mean you always get on top, you always communicate openly, you always you always say honest and sincere with each other in order to make sure that failure is not an option?
The idea of failure is not an option just underlies everything else. Whatever it is, we're going to get through this,
Oh, okay, yeah.
right? We're not going to give up. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say things that we regret. Man, I have no idea how many things I regret saying to my wife in 52 years.
You can write a
Right?
book.
Uh,
I'm joking.
that would be an encyclopedia.
Oh, yes.
But we know each other. And when you know each other, you can also take one another for granted. And that can happen in both directions. My wife is absolutely amazing. I love her to death. That's never going to change. We grew up together. We are so much one another,
Mm,
right? When we've dealt with people who are going through divorce, we've talked about the fact that it's not any different than getting a leg ripped off of your body.
absolutely. I
As you
agree.
become one, it's going to hurt. Are you sure things will be better coming out the other end?
And really think
Oh,
it. Don't
yeah.
take a decision out of just feelings or just because you feel like it, or even worse, grudges. That's one of the things that my parents always
Mm.
emphasized: never hold grudges, because when you do, the only person being hurt is you.
Do you remember the time 14 years ago when you said
Oh,
doesn't solve anything?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. First Corinthians 13, one of the things it says is love keeps no records of wrong.
This was my parents. They would, they would scold us, and then 5 minutes later, they would give us a hug. Same thing
Hmm.
with people, in the heat of the moment, you say things you don't mean to. In the heat of the moment, you can't control your tongue. And then 5 minutes later, they were first to shake their hand, give them a hug.
Yeah.
This is by far the number one lesson that I learned from my parents. God bless both of their souls. And I've been doing all I can in my life to everyone I know, whether friends, family, or people I just met. The number one thing I tell them was to start talking to me is, please do not ever hold grudges. That's the
Hmm.
number one killer of relationships, of magic, of miracles, of everything, of businesses, of everything.
Well, there's a reason that people hold grudges, and that's so that they've got ammunition,
Mm, yeah.
right?
Mm.
Something new, fresh happens, and it's, I remember when, and I'm going to throw this in your face again because that demonstrates that I'm superior. Guess what it really demonstrates?
The opposite.
Exactly. Yeah.
I used to do one of the things I love to do before, and I'm ashamed of it, is I love to play scenarios in my mind. Okay, next time I see this person, I'm gonna tell them this, and put them in their place.
Mm,
Play all these nasty scenarios in my mind. And you know what would happen? 100% of the time, when and if that would happen, it would go the complete exact opposite way. I would never come
mm,
out of it. You were
yeah.
just brewing in your mind a storm that, because as we all know it, our thoughts are extremely powerful. Our thoughts, the word we speak, we manifest, we materialize in them. So now what I do, whenever something
Mhm.
negative comes to my mind, I just say no. Just like the old school, the person trying to reach is not available. You've reached the wrong number. This person doesn't live anymore. It'll stay away. I don't even allow them to come in
Yeah,
my mind or entertain my thoughts.
right.
And
But
I've seen a different image difference.
if you think about it, the reason that you could go off on somebody is because you want something to change. You did this to me means you ought to be doing things differently. So if they ought to be doing different things differently, is you yelling and screaming at them going to make them do things differently?
Absolutely not.
You need a better strategy. If you want things to be different, that's not going to do it. So, why am I holding this grudge? Why am I thinking about this?
1 second. Wow. Powerful indeed. Grudges. That's definitely one thing that if all of us would just do that, simple, shift in mindset of stop holding grudges. I have a feeling I have no data to back it up, but just from my own experience, it could drastically change the course of relationships, whether it's friendship, business, marriages, whatever, and make the world a more peaceful place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to what's the outcome that we're looking for. Like that's how my mind thinks. I'm a strategic planner, and I help people to plan strategically, to say, here's where we are now. Realistically, let's get really clear on that. Now, where do you want to go? How are we going to get there?
Absolutely.
And it's that how that often is where you run into problems. It involves really expanding your creativity. It means getting out of your comfort zone. It means just being willing to let go of what has happened in order to become the very best that you can be. And
Absolutely.
you, whether we're talking about an individual, or we're talking about a marriage, or we're talking about a business, or we're talking, well, it doesn't, a church, it doesn't matter. You got to get creative. You got to look for new ways to be doing things.
Absolutely.
Grudges don't work.
Never did, never
So,
will.
why would you want to do it again?
And also, why would you let someone live rent free in your mind, in your head?
Yep.
It's only
Yep.
killing you softly.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Which comes down to what price am I paying to have them live rent
absolutely.
free in my, because it's costing.
Big time. Big time. It makes,
Yeah.
when I used to do that, it would completely destabilize me. I couldn't focus. I was not able to work, function properly.
Hmm.
And it was really affecting every area of my life.
It will.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
so glad
No
I could do.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's keep moving. Phil, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Oh man, I don't think I have any superpowers,
Oh,
but I think it comes down to that. I just mentioned it, strategic planning,
mm,
at helping people to become really clear. When I'm working with leaders, with church boards, with businesses, whatever it is, um, the first thing that we always work together on is gaining clarity. Get
speak my
a
language.
real good picture of where you are. What's the GPS? Where are you in basically four different things? Core values. What is really, really, really important enough that you'd be willing to die for it?
Oh, love that.
Quite often, when people will talk about their core values, some of them are aspirational and not real. So there's nothing wrong with aspirational core values. But if you want to know what your foundation is, it's what there is evidence of. There's enough evidence that you could be convicted of having that core value, and not just that's something we want to be able to do someday. It's the core values, which is kind of the foundation. And then I picture this as a Venn diagram. I'm also very visual and mathematical in my thinking, sitting on top of that, where you've got purpose, mission, and vision.
Mm,
Purpose is your why. Why are we doing this? Why is this important? From a Christian perspective, it begins with we have been created to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Westminster's Shorter Catechism. It's focused towards Him. But and that's overarching. But why did He make you? Why did He make you with your strengths, weaknesses, with your opportunities and threats, with your possibilities? Because you are unique. And he put you, well, maybe not you, because you've lived in 14 countries, but
At
he's
least in
put
this
you
lifetime.
there. He's put you there now. So why? What
Mm,
is the why that he has put you there? And I mean, you can just go into this kind of a discussion asking hundreds of questions until it becomes crystal clear. When we talk about mission, what is it that you are to do? The mission is the what. Because
mm,
now I'm clear about why I'm supposed to do it. But in between those, I put vision. When you're all done, what'll it look like? If you're able to accomplish that purpose, what will be different? What would just close your eyes and imagine what that part of your life will look like when it's complete.
mm.
Now, everything's progressive, right? Very seldom do we see things rise to their completion. I see these buildings in behind you. When I was teaching school many years ago, they were building the CN Tower,
Oh,
and
yes.
I watched it on TV as it went up. But the day came when it was finished. Okay, was that the end of the company? No, they went on and built something else somewhere else,
Right?
right?
Maintenance.
We were living in Toronto and then in Hamilton when they were building what was, I still call it Skydome, where the Blue
Oh,
Jays
yes.
play,
For me, it's always going to
right?
be Skydome too. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Watching that, and not too long ago, I watched a YouTube video in about 3 minutes that showed the entire thing from when they started digging
Wow.
until the whole thing was built and opened. Um, most of the we may finish projects, but we're never done.
Mm,
But we still get that picture of what will this look like is the vision. And again, coming from a Christian perspective, we want to know what God's vision is because ultimately that's what's important because that ties in with why you're here and what it is here to do. And then we move on to that mission, which was okay, what do we have to do to accomplish this? So that's the first point of the way I work with people on strategic planning, and then we move into having confidence in what that is,
mm,
and then the fact that we can never stop doing it. We need to be consistent in what we're doing. Consistency will determine whether or not most goals are reached.
yes.
So anyway, what's my superpower? I think I understand that process and I'm good at communicating it and I'm good at drawing it out of people so that they can become much better acquainted with why they're there.
Love that. I want to ask the question that you mentioned to you. What is one thing that you would be willing to die for?
Anything in relation to my family, to protect them, to have them experience the best that they can possibly have. There's no question I would die for any one of them if it would save their lives. Um, Not a lot of other things, to be honest, other than my faith. If we get to the point where it is turn your back on Jesus or you die, there's no question.
Hmm.
There's no question.
I am with you
I
on that.
would really want to hang around and protect my family. But I think you get the idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Powerful. Let's move forward.
Hmm.
You like traveling, don't you?
Yes, I've only I mentioned this to somebody earlier today too. I've only been off of North America once. One was a Caribbean cruise that we did 5 years ago, and we went to Hawaii for our 25th anniversary. That's it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. No, that's amazing. That's awesome. I've yet to be on a cruise, but that's on my list. But I want to talk about a different type of traveling. I want to take you
Hmm.
down memory lane. Go back to when we were growing up as a young boy. You know, when we were kids, people around us, family, relatives, friends, teachers always ask us, Hey, Phil, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer to that question as a young boy?
It probably would have been either a hockey or a baseball player
Oh, yeah.
when I was young. I was reasonably good, but not nearly dedicated enough to be consistent in practicing. I wanted to be I wanted to be an architect, and my plan was to become an architect to use my designing abilities. I'm not an artist, but I think I design things reasonably well. Um, and then it was teaching, and my first career actually was as a teacher. I graduated from teachers college. It was back in the day where in Ontario you finished grade 13. 13 is basically
OAC.
first year
Yes.
university,
Yes. Yes.
and then went straight into teachers college. So I graduated from teachers college and began teaching the same year I got married. So I was 19.
Mm.
It was in a residential setting, not an Aboriginal First Nations type, but it was in Kingston, Ontario. And this was a children's center where there were 12 kids. We had two classrooms. So I was one of the teachers, and there was a principal. And they were K to 6, 6 to 12, never any more than 6 kids in the class, and they were all kids that were referred to as emotionally disturbed.
Wow.
Now they would be called ADD, ADHD, ODD, the full alphabet.
Alphabet soup.
So
Yes.
yes, so things changed along the way. They kind of went from pie in the sky to something far more realistic. Um, at 19, I was able to become a teacher and do that. Architect would have been several years away, which would have delayed getting married. And so a lot of different factors into that. But I love teaching. It's still one of the favorite things that I get to do.
Beautiful. Between hockey and baseball, which was your favorite and which one were you the better player?
Hockey would be my favorite. I was a better baseball player.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Played second base, which was the position my dad had played as well.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
Some teachers I loved, some I didn't at all. And in fact, one of the things that drew me to become a teacher was those lousy teachers that they made it also almost impossible to love school.
Mm.
So
I
it very much depended on the teacher.
One teacher completely turned me off from mathematics in grade 6, and as a result of that, I started hating at math and started falling behind, and I was pretty much not able to catch up after that. So
Mm,
that affected me badly in that way. But I totally get it. Some teachers have this charisma that really make you fall in love with the subject. Others that completely make you completely disinterested.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I had a grade 12 English teacher. His name was Mr. Dolan. Before he became a teacher, he was a detective
Wow.
in Windsor, Ontario. So he came from being a detective to being a high school English teacher.
Wow.
And he was just so supportive and loved to see our creativity. And yeah, he ended up being one of my favorites, no doubt about it.
I can imagine, not to mention all the captivating stories that he must have sometimes shared
Yeah,
with you guys. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Interesting guy.
Absolutely. That's an understatement. Wow.
Hmm.
Awesome. Imagine that we were in the same class in grade 10, 11. What kind of student and boy were you? Were you the white nerdy type? Were you the superstar? Were you the chatterbox? What kind of student and boy were you back then?
I I am naturally very introverted.
Okay.
So in a classroom, 10, 11 years of age, or 10, grade 10 or 11, you said?
Yes.
Or did you say age?
No, grade 10, 11.
Grade 10, 11. I was sorting myself out for things that I actually wanted to be good at.
Uh-huh.
Was playing high school football and absolutely loved that, but didn't really enjoy hanging around with the jocks. It was I was at school to learn, and the stuff that I loved to do was outside of school. It
Mm.
was playing sports with my friends in the neighborhood and from our church. We had a basketball court inside the gymnasium of our church, and we were playing there all the time. When when I think about other time out of that, a lot of it was involved in music. I was a decent musician back in those days. Still love it, still love to sing, but don't play any musical instruments anymore. But no, I was narrowing my options down
Mm.
at that point and kind of focused on what it was that I wanted to be doing. Um, which I think everybody does sooner or later, either trial and error or because they're forced into something,
Absolutely.
right? It sounds like you lost the opportunity to develop the things that make human beings great, mathematics.
You know, I learned that mathematics is the language of the universe, and now I kind of
Yeah.
regret not to. It wasn't meant to be for me in this lifetime. I was meant to develop other parts of myself in this lifetime. Maybe I was a scientist, a mathematician in a past life, in a future life, but for this time,
Mm.
it wasn't meant to be. So if it was meant to be for me, I would have found a way to master it. That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Always have,
Yeah.
and I guess I always will. But I
Yes.
think it's part of what helps me to strategize too, because I look at things mathematically.
Absolutely.
So by the time I got to grade 13 in Ontario, so not too many years after that, I had 5 courses that I had to take to graduate. So I did an advanced English, I did calculus, which is math, algebra, which is math, physics, which is
Right.
math,
Yeah.
and chemistry, which is math. So what does that tell you?
Ah.
Then I end up becoming a pastor. Go figure.
We'll get into that in a moment because we can do an entire episode just on that alone. I'm not gonna even touch
Yeah.
it now because I don't want to just dibble it. I want to spend an entire episode just on that, you know.
Okay.
So back to when you were in school in high school and college, university. Were you popular with the ladies?
Not really.
Why is that?
Remember, I got married at 19.
Oh yes,
We,
okay, okay,
we,
okay,
we got married 4 years after we met,
okay.
right? So we had a rough stretch the first year, but then it became pretty clear that God had drawn us together and this was going to be our future.
What made you realize that she was the one? Was it a specific instant, moment, something either of you may have said, or was it something gradual and progressive over time?
I think it was more gradual, but it crossed the line where it said, I cannot live my life without this woman.
What made you have this realization?
I don't know that there was one particular thing. It was just a growing relationship that got to the point where that's it. And I mean, I've done a lot of marriage counseling through the years, and the focus has always been don't marry the person that you can live with. Marry the person you can't live without.
Oh, I love this. Let me actually repeat this if please, and I will write this down. Don't get married with a person you can live with. Marry the person you can't live.
Without.
That's t-shirt worthy.
Well,
Not too worthy even, I'm joking.
and we've made it 52 years, so there must be something to it.
I believe so, yes. I believe so.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Do you remember what was your very first job? And do you remember how much you get paid the first time you worked?
Elsie and I had met. I wanted to be able to buy a car instead of taking a bus back and forth between Peterborough and Kingston. And I got a job washing dishes in a Greasy Spoon restaurant on George Street in downtown Peterborough. And I was earning 85 cents an hour.
Wow.
And the reason I got 85 cents washing dishes was because I didn't get tips. The
Oh,
waitresses got tips. So they earned 75 cents an hour plus tips.
I see. How long did it
I
last?
lasted about 4 months.
Okay. Was it enough to buy your car at the end of it?
No.
At least a down payment.
My first car was a 1963 Renault.
Oh, wow.
There's another name that goes on that I can't remember what it is, but it had an electric automatic transmission, and it came with a crank that if it wouldn't start because of the battery, you could crank it.
Like
Rear
the old
engine.
school, yeah, at the front of the car. Oh, wow.
Exactly. First time I tried doing it, I almost broke my arm because it kicked back.
That's a collector. You should have kept that one, you know? It would be worth millions right now.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. But no, it
Wow.
was an electric automatic transmission, push button,
Beautiful, beautiful.
leading edge, right?
Seriously, I'm surprised that I grew up in France, so I'm familiar with Renault. And
Wait,
when I finally,
Roni Dauphin, Dauphin.
Dolphin, yes.
Yeah,
When we moved to Canada in 95, I was 14 and a half, 15. I was surprised that we couldn't find the cars you see in France, like Renault, Peugeot, Citroën, the French brands.
yeah,
And sure, you have the European ones, like the German brands and all that. But I'm
yeah,
surprised that back then in Canada, you were able to find Renault. I was not expecting that. I was expecting more like a Ford, like a GM or a Chrysler,
yeah,
the traditional.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I remember the Citroens.
Citroën, yeah.
These
We
big
call them, we call them,
monstrous
we call them
boats.
Citron, lemon, we call them.
Yeah, but they had a pneumatic lift, right? Start them up and they'd lift up off the ground.
Wow.
My brother had a very bad, or sorry, my brother-in-law. I don't have a brother. My brother-in-law was very tall. He was about 6'4", but he had very short legs. So even if he'd been proportionate, he could have played in the NBA.
Wow.
But so he had a very bad back. They went to the Toronto Auto Show, and he sat in as many cars as he could finally sit in, and the only one he was comfortable in out of all of those was a Peugeot.
Wow.
So he ended up buying a Peugeot, and actually was in an accident with that one and got a second one after that. But the only car was comfortable for him. Now, they didn't have all the adjustments that we have today, for sure. But yeah, they love their Peugeot diesel.
Wow. Interesting. Wow. Definitely a trip down memory line. Awesome.
Yes.
Listen, Phil, we'll definitely do a part two, part three, and four eventually. Let's call it
Okay.
a day for today, for today's call. Today's part one. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
My website is soulimpact.ca.
Okay.
And my email attached to that is Phil, at soulimpact.ca, not .com, because that was taken. But .ca, Canada was available, still works all over the world.
Yes.
So I'm continuing to make improvements to this. Talking with our friend Hannah the other day, she gave me some good advice on fine tuning a bunch of it. So I've been doing that. But those are the best ways. I'm on Facebook. Soul Impact .ca again is a Facebook group that I work with. Yeah, and what do you got? About 30,000 people that watch this and listen to it, or is that next year?
Oh,
I'd be
no.
happy to hear from any of them.
Oh, absolutely. Like the entire globe soon. And all our brothers and sisters from the galaxy and all that. And the
Yeah,
angels.
I like your sense of humor.
Not humor, I'm projecting. That's my vision.
Oh,
I'm joking. No, I'm
okay.
sorry. No, thank you. Listen, it's not the numbers, it's the people that matter. The right people
Absolutely.
watching it. That's how I
Yeah.
do it, and that's yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, Phil,
Well,
I salute you. You're truly with a heart. I love your story, your dedication, your wisdom. I'm really honored that we
thank you.
connected. Me and you will be very welcome. We'll be doing quite a few episodes, and keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world. Your presence, your impact, your wisdom, your kindness, your generosity, your beautiful heart, and your gifts. You've been blessed with phenomenal gifts. We will
Thank you so
unpack.
much.
We're welcome. We'll unpack your gifts in the next episode. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you always, and talk to you very soon, my dear friend. Take
And
care.
you too, my friend. Thanks so much.
Please on
Bye
mine. Very
now.
welcome. Cheers.